Jennifer, it is November 7th, 1996, and I have decided to write about your past year from my perspective. I attempted to begin this story when you were first hospitalized at Minneapolis Children's Hospital, but for some reason the PowerBook computer was not working. I'm learning to let life flow and realize there's a reason for everything. I didn't think I would be able to recall the details as time passed. I was wrong. I can remember the details of this past year as though it were yesterday. I'm writing this story as a gift to you and as healing for me. The doctors informed us when you first became ill that you would not remember any of your illness. I'm not writing to inform you of the not-so-pleasant details, but to simply share your story with you. I believe you should know the story so you can then share it in the future. I'm also writing this as healing for me. This experience has been the greatest challenge of my life of 38 years. It will also most likely be the greatest challenge of yours. With challenges and pain also comes growth. I wish to God you never had to experience your illness for us to learn these painful lessons. I'm going to share with you my pain as your father. I also want you to know I have felt a great sense of pride watching you recover and adjust through this past year. Keep in mind this story is from my perspective. Each person will have their own story to tell. Please accept my story as a gift of love for you. Wednesday, December 13th, 1995. I dropped you off at school in the back lot of the junior high. Wished you a good day and told you I loved you. There was an upcoming Christmas concert that you were preparing for with excitement. You had a mild headache that morning, but insisted on not missing the practice. The previous Friday, December 8th, your brother Ryan had a hockey tournament in Buffalo, Minnesota, which we were all planning on attending. You started to feel ill, and it was bad weather, so Mom decided to stay home with you. Later that night, I received a call from Mom letting me know the pipe burst in the basement, causing flooding. It ended up being a blessing that Mom stayed home, otherwise we would have returned home to a house filled with water. I tried to calm Mom down by responding, at least it wasn't one of the kids. After I dropped you off at school, I proceeded with work. I had a meeting that day out of town. I decided to take Mom's car that day because bad weather was predicted, and her car did better in that weather. It started to rain on my way to the meeting and eventually turned to freezing rain. I facilitated the meeting and started my 2-hour travel back home. It continued to rain and froze to ice. The roads were becoming difficult, and I told myself I would take my time and relax with some music. Many days I make a lot of calls on my cell phone when in the car, but I decided not to make any calls that day due to the weather. Rather, I would just listen to the radio. My assistant Julie called me at approximately 1 p.m. and said that while she was at lunch, Mom had called and left a message on the office voicemail asking that she call the clinic because you were sick. I called Mom at the clinic and she was crying. The doctors were not sure what was wrong with you. The nurse talked to me on the phone explaining to me what was going on at that time and mentioned it was serious, but I needed to take my time driving so I would not end up in an accident. We were later informed that you had not felt well in class and had a severe headache that eventually caused you to go to the nurse. You told the nurse to call Mom at work and rattled off her telephone number. You lay on the couch to rest as the nurse let Mom know you most likely had the flu and to not worry, since there was quite a bit of it going around at the time. So Mom took her time as suggested and finished her lunch. She later drove to school and went to the nurse's office expecting to take you home. You had vomited on your shirt and did not seem to be bothered by this, which was very odd and out of character for you. You appeared incoherent and disoriented. Mom knew immediately that something was wrong and you were seriously ill. You didn't seem to recognize her and could not respond to simple questions. Mom drove you to the New Ulm Hospital, where you were seen by the doctor on call and a CAT scan was taken of your brain. I continued to drive back to New Ulm as the weather became progressively worse. My mind was racing with all sorts of thoughts. It was so hard not being there. I kept saying to myself, take your time driving. You are not good to anyone if you get in an accident. I distinctly remember passing a snowplow and praying I would make it. I made it safely to the hospital after a long drive. Grandma and Mom were in the waiting room. Mom and I embraced and tried to assure each other everything would be all right. You were still having the CAT scan taken, so I could not see you right away. Some of the technicians came out with gloves on their hands. They were initially concerned with spinal meningitis, which is deadly and contagious. The doctor came to talk to us to discuss the CAT scan results. Spinal meningitis was ruled out, but they did not know what the diagnosis was. The weather was getting worse, and we needed to be prepared to make some decisions about your care. Your condition was serious, and we did not know what it was. The doctor would make some calls, and you would need to be flown out by the Lifelink plane to either the Twin Cities or Rochester. We decided on the Twin Cities, specifically Minneapolis Children's Hospital, because we had support there from family in the area. I also wanted you seen by a children's specialist. After we made decisions with the doctor, I saw you for the first time after you had become sick. I believe I was in shock. You were slipping into a coma and didn't know who I was. I held your hand tightly and told you I loved you and that I was there and you would be all right. Periodically, you would squeeze my hand, indicating a response. You had a grimacing look on your face as though you were in extreme pain. You could not talk or respond to any commands. We were asking you to squeeze our hand if you could hear us, but after a couple of times, we realized that was taking a lot of precious energy from you, and we discontinued. There was so much commotion and confusion going on around us, very similar to ER and television. I remember seeing a mother of one of your classmates who was a nurse in the room. Our eyes met, and I could see the look of concern on her face. Your grandpa came to the hospital, and he also held your hand and encouraged you to hang in there. My assistant came to the hospital and assured me she would handle decisions at the office. Grandma decided to leave the hospital so your brothers did not come home to an empty house. She would take care of them as we stayed with you. More decisions had to be made. We were informed that the rainstorm turned to an ice storm, and the Lifelink helicopter could not fly. The Lifelink plane was utilized instead. There was not enough room on the plane for both Mom and I. Only one of us could stay with you. As difficult as it was to not be with you, Mom and I both knew it was best for Mom to stay with you. I have more experience driving in bad weather and in the Twin Cities. You were transported by ambulance to the airport. Mom stayed with you in the ambulance, and I followed with my Civic. The Lifelink plane arrived. It was not very big. It seemed to take forever to get you going. Mom and I stood outside part of the time as they got you ready. They needed to stabilize your condition the best they could. It was a freezing rainstorm outside. It hurt our faces to stand outside for any length of time. I washed as the plane took off and then drove home. Grandma helped me pack clothes for Mom and I. We had no way of knowing how long we would be gone. The boys were home from school. I told them you were sick and we weren't sure what was wrong. They would stay at Grandma's house while we were gone. Mom's boss offered his Jeep for me to drive to the hospital in the Twin Cities. I took my car phone and address book. It was a blessing to have the Jeep. I don't know if either of our cars would have made it. The roads were pure ice. I drove 35 miles per hour and could not pass anyone. Again, I continued to pray and remind myself to take my time. I called family and close friends on the car phone. I was concerned with Mom being alone. My concern was more decisions might need to be made without me there. I was also aware you might die, and I did not want Mom to be alone if that would happen. The plane landed safely in St. Paul, and you were transferred by ambulance to Minneapolis Children's Hospital. Mom refused to look outside the window of the plane while on the way there. She said it was quite the ride. The same goes for the ambulance ride over. It was 5 o'clock rush hour. I kept in touch with Mom by cell phone once you were in the Twin Cities. I did feel better when Mom told me friends had arrived there to comfort her and keep her company until I arrived. I arrived safely in the Jeep and came to your bedside. You had slipped more soundly into your coma. Specialists would come in to see you and then talk to us. At first, they were not sure what was wrong. Mom and I stayed by your bedside at all times that first night. You were in the intensive care unit and had a nurse assigned to you 24 hours a day. There were 2 chairs in the room. Parents were allowed to stay in the room 24 hours a day, but were not allowed to sleep in the room. I think it was about 4 a.m. when Mom and I finally went to bed. We slept in this little room with 2 hide-a-bed couches. It was very cramped, but we were happy to be nearby. We were at the end of the hall and would be contacted if there was any change. Mom and I held each other and cried that night as you lay in your coma. We only slept a few hours that night. I think we were up by 7 a.m. I didn't shower. We came down to see you, hoping that there was a change in your condition. There was none. I went back to shower. All the parents had to share one bathroom similar to a college dorm room. I would cry in the shower and then get dressed for the day, hoping and praying for improvement. We needed to keep up our strength and listen attentively as all of these specialists came to see you. The following day, December 14th, it was decided an MRI would be taken of your brain. It was late in the afternoon, around 4 p.m. Mom and I fell asleep in each other's arms on the couch. We were so tired and emotionally drained. We met later that day with the infectious disease specialist to find out the MRI results. This doctor we met with was only called in to diagnose and treat rare diseases. He asked Mom and I to sit down. He was a very soft-spoken man with gray hair. He started by telling us that he had a daughter your age and that it was very difficult to share this news with us. You were diagnosed with herpes encephalitis. He drew us a diagram on paper explaining your illness. He proceeded to tell us it was very serious. There was a 25% chance you would not survive. If you did survive, there would be a 50% chance you would have a brain injury. We would not know the extent of the damage until you came out of your coma. They explained that you were in an obtune state, which means a half coma. They had not seen a case of herpes encephalitis in over 10 years at Children's. It's extremely rare. The doctor explained to us that everyone has herpes simplex 1, which comes out in the form of a cold sore. Your herpes did not come out in the form of a cold sore. Instead, it turned around and went towards your brain. Your brain was infected with herpes and had completely shut down, which was revealed in the MRI. They would treat you with a medicine called acyclovir, which would attack the herpes virus. This medication was fairly new but showed success in killing this virus. Before acyclovir, herpes encephalitis was almost certain death. If anyone survived, they were usually left with severe brain damage. The doctor advised us that all we could do was wait and pray. There was no way of knowing how long you would be in a coma. It could be 6 months or even years. He offered his condolences. Mom and I went back to your room, held your hand, and cried. We encouraged you to hang on and fight. The next several hours we spent on the telephone informing relatives and friends of the scary news. You had a telephone in your room, but we decided to use the lounge phone instead. The nurse told us of a story of a young man who was in a coma and heard every word that was said. He was frustrated because he couldn't respond, but wanted to tell them that everything was going to be all right. We decided it was important that you only hear positive comments and encouragement. We would prepare relatives in the lounge before they saw you on what to expect. All crying was done in the lounge, so it would not upset you. There were a lot of tears shed. You continued to be in a coma state for 4 days. It appeared as though you were in a deep sleep. You would sometimes grimace in pain, but could not respond to any command. An IV was hooked up to you for feeding. There were many special nurses in the pediatric intensive care unit, but Becky stood out as special. Her first night, she was not a big hit in our eyes. You had a lot of visitors, and the hospital had a policy of only 2 people in the room at one time. Well, there were more than 2 people in the room, and Becky needed to enforce the policy. She was not really popular with our group at first, but as time was on, we formed a bond with Becky. I remember crying in front of her one morning. Mom and I just felt comfortable in front of Becky. She was there when you started showing signs of coming out of your coma and held up her arms in a fist and declared, yes. She was really cheering you on and became personally involved in your struggle to survive. Many friends and relatives came to visit you in the hospital. You really do find out who your close friends are in times of crisis. Our friends Mike and Ruth came to the hospital almost every day to offer support and often provided us with food. Mike would entertain you endlessly by playing Mastermind. Your friend Megan came to visit with her mom. Your best friend since kindergarten, Linda, came with her parents at 12:30 a.m. Mom and I got out of bed and were shocked to see them. Linda called you from their Florida trip that week several times. Uncle Jim was there almost every day and was in charge of prayers. He had his priest come over and pray for you while you were in a coma. It was very spiritual. You spoke your very first words after Grandma applied holy water to your head that she had brought up from the church. She was very touched. Your cousin Kyle also came with your aunt and uncle and enjoyed making your bed elevate with the buttons. We also had a lot of people back home providing us much-needed support by cooking and helping us out in any way possible. One of the most challenging situations was knowing how to handle your brothers in this difficult time. We received support and suggestions from the children's staff on how to handle the boys. They encouraged us to level with them and let them know the truth as much as they could handle. We brought them up to see you on Saturday. You were still in your coma. They both cried when they saw you and were not sure how to react. We hugged them and said it was okay to cry. We had cried a lot also. There was a toy area and Nintendo nearby that kept them occupied. They could only handle several minutes at a time in the room with you at first. Gradually, they could tolerate a little more each time. They would talk to you and let you know what was going on in their worlds. The staff advised us to try to keep their lives as normal as possible during this crisis. We followed their advice. They went back to school on Monday. I was very proud of how the boys handled the situation. They really do love you and showed their concern for you. As a father, you pray that your children love each other and support each other in times of challenge, as one day I will be gone and want you to know you have each other for support. Friends change throughout the years, but family remains. When you first came out of your coma, you were in what is called a manic state, which means being on a natural high, so to speak. You were very friendly and open with the family and wanted to hug everyone. One night, your brother Ryan was walking back with me to the hospital hotel and turned to me and asked if you would always be that nice. Yes, you are a nice sister, but things did get back to normal eventually. We laughed because we were thankful you did not come out of your coma with a negative attitude instead. Your friends were very supportive. On the Saturday following your hospitalization, 4 of your friends came to visit you with one of their moms. I was in the parent waiting area when all of a sudden they were there. I was shocked. Prior to their visit, Mom and I decided we thought it was not best for them to see you in your coma. We were not sure if they could handle it emotionally. They just wanted to drop a card off for you. Mom was back in New Ulm picking up the boys and taking care of some business back home and had called me. We changed our minds and decided to let the girls see you. I prepared them and encouraged them to control their emotions and speak positive words to you. They handled themselves beautifully. They informed you what was happening back in school and encouraged you to get well. Mom and I were learning to let go and let things happen. Later, they made a video for you that you would play often for encouragement. It was Sunday night, and it was time for me to take the boys back home. You were still in a coma. I will never forget that night. We had counseled with hospital staff on how to deal with the family crisis. They encouraged us to try to keep our lives as normal as possible. It could be weeks or even months before you woke from your coma. We decided I would need to continue work and take care of the boys at home, and both grandmas would help out. The boys would go to either one of their grandmas after school. I would continue with work and come home at night. I slept upstairs by the boys' room because I wanted to be close to them if they had a bad dream. It was hard to concentrate at work, but we decided you would not want the business to fail and that we needed to keep the family going, even if you did not make it. That Sunday night, I was torn up inside because I knew intellectually I needed to go home, but emotionally I wanted to stay by your side. I had not shaved for several days and started to grow a beard. As I was saying goodbye to you, you touched my face gently and felt my face. You were trying to figure out who I was. It was as though you, in your own way, you were telling me it was all right to go. You understood, and you were reassuring me you would be all right. As it turned out, you were coming out of your coma. By the time I got home, Mom called and informed me you sat up and smiled for the camera when they took your picture. It was a positive sign. It had been the most trying 4 days of our lives. It was a positive sign that you came out of the coma earlier rather than later. I continued to work back home and took care of the boys as Mom stayed by your side constantly. I called you several times during the day by my car phone. You could not respond verbally at first, but Mom would tell me she could tell that you were able to understand what I was saying by your facial expressions. I would encourage you and tell you I loved you. Mom would then take the phone and update me on your medical status. Friends and family would come and visit Mom and try to give her a break. The biggest challenge as you came out of your coma was to keep you from pulling out your IV, which you did several times. You complained that it itched, and you would forget that we would tell you why it was in your arm and why you needed it. After you came out of your coma, you were moved from ICU to the 7th floor. You continued to improve every day. You couldn't remember what would happen a minute ago. The doctors told us only time would tell. Your progress was uncertain, and they thought that you would gradually regain your short-term memory, but there was no guarantees. We were thankful you had your long-term memory. Some people lose that ability and have no memory of their family. There were some funny stories concerning your short-term memory loss. You could not wait to open up your Christmas gifts and kept begging Mom to let you open just one gift. Mom finally gave in to your begging and allowed you to open just one. Since you couldn't recall what you kept repeatedly asking to open just one gift, you opened up a beautiful glass butterfly that your uncle gave you. Shortly after, you were asking again to open just one gift, since you had forgotten what you had just opened. After some time, Mom got the idea to rewrap the same gift, since you would forget. You opened that same butterfly several times and were just as surprised each time. When you moved up to the 7th floor, you became very attached to your nurse, Dawn. She was young and pleasant and worked on Christmas Eve. You would always forget her name, so it became a game for you to try to guess it. She also worked one night that was extremely challenging for us. As I mentioned earlier, you wanted to pull out your IV constantly because of the itching, and you could not remember that we told you that you could not because there was medicine that was fighting the virus. We would have to hold your hand constantly as you tried to pull it out several times a minute. Needless to say, Mom was becoming exhausted. I came up one night to help out. I remember lying in bed with you and wrestling your arm back constantly. I slept with you at night, holding your hand back. We asked for a nurse at night to watch you because we decided we needed rest. Mom's friend Deanne felt so bad for us that she stayed over one night to help us out. What a friend. We greatly appreciated it. Christmas came and we spent it up there with our same traditions. Grandma and Uncle Jim spent the evening with us. We videotaped some of the special evening. It was a beautiful evening. It was not sad, but rather joyful because you were recovering and we were together. Mom brought up our little Charlie Brown Christmas tree along with all of the gifts. Grandma brought food. We opened the gifts one by one like we always do, hugged each other in thanks, and enjoyed the evening. Mom, the boys, and I would sleep at the hospital hotel and would walk back through the underground tunnel to see you during the day. Some friends came on Christmas Day. You received several movies which we watched over and over because you did not realize you had already seen it several times in a row. After 16 days, you were ready to go home. The medicine acyclovir had won the battle. You were ready to be discharged from Minneapolis Children's Hospital. You had survived a tremendous battle for your life. You still had short-term and intermittent memory problems. Physically, you were doing well. The doctors told us there was no reason to stay in the hospital. He encouraged us to send you to school the following week at half days to begin. You were tired. We would need to contact the school about special services to deal with the memory problems. The doctor told Mom and me something I will never forget. Jennifer will tell you what she needs, if not in words, in actions. And he informed us that the hard work was ahead of us. I borrowed Devin's Jeep to bring you home. Our family friends decorated the home for you. We tried to keep it as quiet as possible as you came home. Grandpa and Grandma came up to see you. Your aunt gave you a music tape that ended up becoming very special to you and your family. It had a song on it called Wonder that spoke of children overcoming adversity. It became your song. The words applied very much to your situation, and now every time we hear it, we think of this experience that we've endured. You were nervous about going back to school the following Monday. I dropped you off at the back door. Your school counselor was waiting for you to help escort you to your classes. We had a meeting with the school and were assigned to a special education teacher who would assist you with your deficits and memory problems. You needed a map of the school to get around. We just focused on having you at school physically at first to begin with. We were not concerned with grades or memory. It would be too overwhelming to try to recover everything to begin with. You continued the school year with great courage. There were frustrations, but you dealt with each one as they came your way. Your friends were a great support system as well. Herpes encephalitis affected your judgment at the time, in addition to your memory. It was a difficult time for all of us, especially for your teenage years. We were referred to a psychologist in the Twin Cities who worked specifically with teenagers with brain injury, and she was a godsend for all of us. We needed a third-party perspective, and you needed someone other than your family to vent to. Your psychologist basically coached us on how to deal with any changes and how to parent differently, as you were a different person than before the brain injury. I don't know where we would be without her support. That summer brought some difficult news for us. We had a follow-up visit with the doctors on July 3rd. We had been hoping for a full recovery. A follow-up MRI was performed. Unfortunately, it revealed there was permanent scarring on the temporal lobes of the brain. We were told you would have intermittent memory problems. You regained your short-term and long-term memory, but not intermittent, which means you forgot things after several days. Intermittent is between the long and short memory. In fall, you entered 9th grade. You were very frightened with the start of the school year, but you continued to make great strides every day, Jennifer. You continued to receive support from the learning disability teacher and started using a small mini-computer organizer planner to compensate for your memory deficits. Jennifer, there's so much I want to say to you. I will try to share some thoughts of inspiration and insight that I've acquired over time. It has been a great challenge for me to restrain myself this past year from being your rehabilitation counselor. I work in the field of rehabilitation day in and day out. However, I realized that I needed to be your father, not your counselor. You needed to go to someone different for those needs. At the same time, I want to share with you some of the knowledge and experience that I've gained in these years. I deal with clients grieving the loss of a function on a daily basis. You have suffered a loss and you need to grieve. Feel the pain. Don't deny it. You have a right to be angry for a period of time. However, move beyond that pain and anger and let it motivate you to make a positive change in your life. Don't let this change make you an angry or bitter person. Life is still good. Bad things do happen to good people. Life is a process, Jennifer, of continually growing. To accept the change effectively, you need to go through the stages of grief. One of those stages is anger. You never get to the point of completely accepting the disability. It becomes a lifelong process. Jennifer, we can't control everything that happens to us in our lives. However, we do have the power to choose our response to whatever happens. There are so many lessons we can learn if we are open to them rather than resistant. I've learned many lessons through this challenging year. Emotional growth often takes place as a result of pain. Life will be different for you, Jennifer, but that does not mean worse. It just means different. My hope for you is that you are happy in life. Do not let this make you bitter. We all have so much potential that we do not use. Your potential may be different than before, but that is all right. The main thing is that you reach your full potential. You came very close to death. In fact, you told Mom one day after school that you remember having a choice to live or die. You told Mom you didn't want to leave your family and friends. I believe it was not your time to go, Jennifer. There have been times this past year I have observed our family interacting, and I can't imagine life without you here. The pain would be too immense to describe. I am grateful you are with us. You know how much the saying, feel the fear and do it anyway, means to me. Many times when I started becoming overwhelmed by everything, I would repeat the saying from the book, whatever happens, I'll handle it. Jennifer, we will handle each challenge as it is presented and look at it as an opportunity to learn. This past year is just one chapter in your life. I wrote this chapter for you because you would not be able to remember it. I started out stating this is just one chapter in your life. Do not let this experience define you. Minimize your disability. We all have limitations. Focus on your strengths and what you have to give to the world. You have so much to offer. Continue to dream. Your dreams may be different than before, but don't stop reaching for them. I believe life is a continuous process of moving forward. Continue to grow. You are celebrating December 13th by having a party with your friends. It's time to celebrate your miraculous recovery. This concludes this chapter in your life. Writing your story has been a tremendous healing process for me. I would encourage you to continue the story when you feel the need. Also, you may benefit by reading your story more than once and at different times in your life. You will have a different perspective of your story 1 year from now, and when you are 18, and when you are my age, 38. I hope you find strength and encouragement from your story. I love you, Jennifer, and I'm so fortunate to have you as my daughter. Love, Dad.
They say I must be